there's three different types of organisations I often deal with. Really big organisations who are here and want to do that. Really small organisations who are on their way to doing something really, really big, and kind of franchised operations who have a central control and they're trying to get all the other people to try to do what the centre tells them. And there's one thing that stops them from doing that, and that person is the customer. And the customer is not the answer, and the customer gets listened to way too often in business today, and it's doing my head in. So when you go shopping at IKEA, that's a heat map of the shop. So you make you walk for miles. It's not a maze, it's a long circuit. What happens there is you build up delayed gratification, and you also have a lot of sunk costs in the trip. So therefore you end up buying shitloads of tea lights when you get to the counter. It's true, they have a massively high discretionary spend at IKEA because they make you do so much work to get your stuff. And then obviously the other thing they do is they make you finish and complete the furniture yourself once you bought it, which makes you value it even more. So neither of those things are customer-centric, they're very much brand-centric, and that's the reason why they're such a successful business. And this is, and a brand is basically a promise kept. You know that if you go to IKEA, it's going to be a half-day shopping experience, and you're going to have to work out how to get the bloody thing home and build it yourself, and that's what you end up doing. At the moment, interestingly, they're thinking of screwing with their very own proposition and having delivery services and kind of building services and so on, which I think is going to be really interesting to see how that brand moves forward from now. So, brands are always about two basically things: what people want and what you do. And marrying those two things together kind of creates that promise kept. But something interesting is happening in my world at the moment. So I'm normally in advertising and kind of working out what the brand stands for and communicating that out to the world. What I see is really, really weird is my clients are talking about the customer all the time, what they want. They've got all of this data. They can kind of look at every single thing they do in kind of a customer journey and so forth, and they try to map everything out. And with all of this data about what the customer wants, they're forgetting about what they actually do as a business or a brand. They don't have a brand positioning, they don't have a brand book, they don't have a brand that's disseminated right through the organisation, they don't have the brand as a North Star, and they actually forget the very basics of marketing, which is what they stand for. They even change the titles and put the chief marketing officers become the chief customer officer, which does my head in if I see that. And they put the brand above all else, and then everyone has got one of their values being customer obsessed, which is kind of, again, a little bit icky. So I want to make it stop. I want to stop putting the customer first, and if your whole conference day is around putting the customer first, I may not be the speaker for you. Which basically knocks me out of about 80% of the gigs going around at the moment, but that doesn't matter. So, stop listening to your customer for three reasons. Number one, it's not accurate. Two, it eliminates value out of your business. Three, it's going to make your business homogenous. And I'll talk about those three things really quickly. It's not accurate. People don't think what they feel, they don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say. So if you ask people what they want, they've got no bloody idea. The only thing, and if you get people together in a focus group room and you ask them to explore what the things that they want, what do you think they're really good at giving you feedback on? Anything? They're good at giving you feedback about the focus group room. So, if you are a focus group room designer and you want to get a whole lot of people into a focus group, it's a very good idea to get them to explore the focus group. But if you're anything else, then don't bother. We're very bad at predicting forwards. We're very bad about thinking tangentially to what's reality. We're very bad to think outside of the actual room we're in. Now, two, listening to the customer eliminates value. So, who said this? I really want to see more of their advertising and I want to spend more of my time interacting with their brand. That's right, no one ever. So if you really were customer-centric, and I love this quote, and I still quote my dinner with Malcolm Gladwell some years ago, but I said, if you were the marketing director, what would you do? What do you think people really want from brands? So this is his laconic answer. If you asked the consumer what they really wanted, they'd answer, I just want to be left alone. So the more you listen to the customer, the more you're going to leave them alone and stay out of their way, and just give them what they want when they want it, slide in and out of their consciousness through the latest techno wizard thing, and your brand is going to become like Teflon. It'll slide in and out of consciousness and be there just as they want it. If anyone's seen WALL-E, it's a really good example of what the world would look like if we listen to the customer all the time. So that, unfortunately, is the very opposite of how brands grow. And according to Byron Sharp, who's written the book on it, no marketing activity, including innovation, should be seen as a goal in and of itself. The goal is to hold on to or improve mental and physical availability. So brands grow by being readily available, they're there to buy it, and to be stuck in the mind. But if you constantly listen to the consumer, they're going to say, I don't want to know about your brand, I only want to know about it when I buy it. And so it's going to be sliding in and out. So a Teflon brand is the opposite to what we're trying to do, which is basically get stuck in the consumer's mind and be there for when we want to be purchased. So it eliminates value, it's inaccurate, and it creates homogeneity. So why does this happen? Lots of brands start off really, really different, and then they come and they start to regress really towards the mean. You look at the big four banks, there's no difference between any of them. Any kind of category, you look at cars today, they're all pretty much the same. All mature categories kind of start to look more and more like each other. And the reason for that is a little bit complicated, but it's basically because consumers don't need your brand. They don't need whatever it is any of you are selling in the room. They need your category. So most of the time, people don't care about what you're selling or what your business is all about. They just do their own thing. Then they want an ice cream. There's a trigger. It's a hot day. They want an ice cream. They decide they need a new family car. They need to feed the family for dinner that night. They're thirsty. They've just had a kid. They need nappies. The trigger is the category. It's always the category. It's not a particular brand. Once that category is triggered, then the consideration set occurs, and the 3 or 4 brands light up in the consumer's mind, and they decide to which one to buy. That's called active consideration. They end up buying one, and then there's a reconsideration phase after they've used that particular brand where there's a trigger, they'll go back and consider again. The more you listen to the customer, the more you're listening to the category needs, not your particular brand need. And that's the reason why your brand will start to become more and more like everybody else the more you listen to them. So not only creates Teflon, it creates homogeneity. So the answer to listening to the customer is building brand intelligence instead. And being able to understand and prioritise what your brand delivers beyond all else is kind of what I'm in the business of doing at myself and my agency. And making sure that your brand stands for something, and that's rolled out right through the entire organisation, from the CEO to everybody else inside. And making sure that happens despite, not because of, what consumers want and say as well. And that can be really hard sometimes. So I gave this talk to the university sector a while ago. The university sector, tertiary universities, is under pressure from lots of different organisations at the moment. Lots of different things, lots of different micro startups and so forth. And they did some research, and the research said that universities are boring. You have to go and study there. It's often irrelevant what you study to end up what you end up doing, and it often takes too long. So that's really good consumer insight. Now, if I was the universities, I would potentially, or certainly if I was on stage and talking about it, I would ignore what the consumer says. In reality, it might be a little bit different, but at least I'll start with ignoring what the consumer says. I wouldn't try to fix these things. I'd actually start to try to amplify these 3 things. This also touches on a little bit about the book Big Nose, which I'm in the process of writing. And it's about, if you do have weaknesses, then people are going to know those weaknesses. They're going to be true, so you can't fight them, so you may as well dive into them and own them. So how to create strong brand intelligence? There's 3 really quick things. Number 1, get the CEO to become the Chief Brand Officer. The Chief Brand Officer should be the most valuable position in the company, not the Chief Executive Officer. It's all about the brand. The brand should be the North Star and should go straight through the organisation. Number 2, try not to have a marketing department. If the organisation you work with has a marketing department, then the organisation you work at probably doesn't realise that everything is marketing. And so if you have a marketing department or a chief marketing officer, then you're in a bit of trouble because marketing becomes the role of some people but not everybody. And 3, take the time to know your brand from the inside out. What are your brand values? What's your brand proposition? What are your features and benefit? or however you want to describe that brand, does that permeate through the entire organisation?